episode of Fanatically Speaking, a bonus episode. I am Kent, the co-host and promoter.
I am Loggoff, the Loggoff legend, the hater of social media. I am the co-host and producer of the show.
And again, like I said, it is a bonus episode. I know we've had some long episodes, short episodes, but this is just one topic.
Yeah, one topic, and it's kind of the flavor of the moment right now. It's the unveiling of the NBA gambling scandal that's going on with a few key players and key names involved. And, I think we were a little ahead of this. We had our gambling episode a few weeks ago.
Correct.
And, we touched on some of the goings-ons and actually a couple of the players that were arrested within this federal, sting. So I'm just going to give just some quick backstory on it. A lot of the details. If you're listening to this, chances are you already know. So there were 34 people charged in NBA/poker gambling cases. The big names that are included in this is Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier. And so the interesting thing about the allegations is that it's wide ranging. It's ranging from actual bets that have been placed by, co-conspirators on behalf of players, inside information being shared from coaches, front office executives, things of that nature. And then I guess the baffling part, the thing that confused me about this coming down was that there was this gambling aspect which involved poker games that is kind of tied and connected to it when I don't think it really fits. Is that fair to say, Kent?
Yeah, we talked about it. I don't know. I think it's just thrown in there because I think during the investigation, they found that NBA players are playing these high-stake poker games that's connected to the mafia, and there may be some, illegal or whatever I don't know if it's illegal. Well, apparently it is. But grabbing regular people into these games so they can be cheated by the mafia.
Got it. And like I said, and I think the part that confused me is, okay, what crimes actually were committed? And I actually had to do some looking into it. There's, in terms of enforcement of gambling, meaning, Kent, you come over to my home, there's 4 other guys, there's 6 guys, we're playing poker, and we bet money. The cops aren't going to kick in your door for that, regardless of the amount, unless there's some sort of shenanigans or, devious behavior going on where you are conspiring to take money from people. And I think that's what happened here, where when you look into just kind of the breakdown of what was happening within the gambling space, how there were Chauncey Billups, at least, has been accused of kind of reeling people with money and celebrities into poker games. So that way they can be taken advantage of with, I think you mentioned like X-ray glasses and, just tables where they can see what your cards are, what hands are being played. It's literal cheating.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about it is that, like Chauncey Billups, for example, his actual charges are for wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. So that was the connection that they had to make to the gambling in order to arrest him for something. Okay. And for the most part, and I don't know if anyone, wants to get too deep into this, but the reason why gambling is such a big deal is because when you gamble outside of the normal scope of gambling and big money is being exchanged, you aren't paying taxes on it. That's how they get you. So the wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering, all that really just means is that, hey, the government wasn't aware that you were exchanging these large amounts of money, and we want our cut.
Yeah. And again, the larger amount, things like that, that's going to set off red flags, alerts. So that, and again, when you start saying mafia, NBA players, celebrities, big time money, again, that draws the attention.
Yeah, it draws the attention, and I have a bigger take that I want to get to, and I'll land on this at the very end. Okay. But this particular announcement was a relatively large circus, and I think it was intended to do that. It was a little disappointing. I wasn't aware of it. I was at work, and you were in a group chat with me and you were kind of sending me the information about it. I was expecting something bigger, as everyone wants to behave as if this is a big deal. And they're saying, oh, well, there's more things coming. If these are the biggest names that you have, Chauncey Billups, great player as a player, champion.
Oh yeah.
Now, now NBA coach, Terry Rozier, okay,
Yeah.
decent sized NBA name, but that's not, to me, it's not enough. And I felt like the pageantry that was lended to the announcement for this was as if they were actually, really stopping some crime. But
Yeah.
but it's not. It's like, oh, okay, guys are gambling. Look, I don't like cheaters. I don't like people to cheat and manipulate and take money from people. The lengths that they were going to scheme money away from people certainly bothers me. But to me, it just didn't seem like that big of a deal, especially to say that every single major sports organization is now tied to some sort of legalized gambling. These are the things that happen when people are betting money. Sorry.
True. But then it's a whole nother level. And again, Jonte Porter, we mentioned in a previous episode. Again, right now he's banned from the NBA for gambling within the game. Terry Rozier is a little, his crimes are a little more, sport related, right? Where he is allegedly, having like 30 some bets placed on the under of him playing, or minutes or points, and he's missing shots on purpose, allegedly looking like, if you watch the video, he's passing to the other team. Looks like he never played basketball before. And then again, removing himself from a game early. So those big bets that were placed, those weird, strange bets that were just placed on him, so many, would go through and win. So Terry Rozier, we could talk about Billups. Now that I've heard you, explain, and I've read all the charges against him. Probably, does he get fired if this all goes through? Maybe. Does he get suspended? Maybe. The NFL, they only, they suspend guys a year for gambling within the game, or however that works. So the NBA, Jonte Porter right now, he's banned. I would expect Terry Rozier. This is like Pete Rose level. Right. This is point shaving. This is fixing games on performance. I would expect Terry Rozier to get a lifetime ban.
Okay, and I agree with that, especially to say that his investigation has been extensive, because they've been looking into him for months. And
Yeah.
it's kind of weird, because he was always a great player. Like he was one of those guys that's like, okay, he can perform, and then all of a sudden everything kind of went soured for him.
Yeah.
And then the allegations came out. And then it's like, okay, well, we have to put you on the couch for a bit. So for Terry Rozier, and this isn't a knock on, him as a player, but I think the difference with him and Pete Rose is that Pete Rose was a massive star and, a huge name within baseball.
True.
And Terry Rozier is not that. So I feel like this was like a collaborative effort to get everything kind of thrown together to make this look like, and we've seen this before publicly, we could talk about police departments and FBI, where it's like, we're going to make this as big of a deal as we can to really draw attention to ourselves. But the amount of money that they're talking about is really not a lot of money. And I think if this is one of these things that is being brought up to truly right the wrong, I don't have a problem with it. If people were schemed and scammed out of money, and you've got mafia ties and things like that, it gets a little hairy. But as long as the victims can get their money back, I'm okay. I don't. If Chauncey Billups has to go to jail for that, that's fine. But if people were actual victims of having money schemed away from them when they think it's a fair game and it's not, then I just want to make sure that we keep those people in mind, because, as much coverage as this is going to get, there's a lot of people who are going to make money on this being released. And I just want to make sure that the victims make sure that they get reimbursed.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Terry Rozier's made millions. Billups has made millions. I would assume they're not hurting too bad. Then we didn't even bring up Damon Jones, allegedly, a former player, and now it was like an assistant coach recently. So he was giving out information about LeBron James not playing, so placed the bet on the Bucks in one game. Again, you can't have that within the sport, especially with the gambling. You can't have fixing games, fixing performances, the over the unders. That's the stuff. And like you said, maybe it was made bigger. Maybe it's made bigger so we don't continue having this. You know, no, Rozier's not a big name as Pete Rose, but in the sense of cheating the game, you know, to fix it. That's where I make the comparison. But again, we've got we got baseball players right now that are on leave for, you know, fixing, throwing balls 100 feet outside the strike zone. But just so happened a random bet was also placed on, you know, his performance. So it's the stuff like that that raises the red flags. You mentioned the government, the feds getting involved. This is not the first time that the government got involved in sports and cheating scandals. Obviously, the steroid cases that were brought to Washington, I thought were ridiculous, because I'm just like, they spent millions of dollars on these investigations into baseball players using steroids. And I was like, why does the government care that baseball players are cheating or using steroids? I'm not going to say cheating, because when they were using them, it wasn't cheating, because the league knew about it. They were just turning a blind eye. So, but I was confused why we had to watch, you know, McGuire, Palmeiro, Sosa go up there and have that circus go on. And as you mentioned, the news conference the other day, kind of not that level of circus, I don't think. Because if everyone remembers when Palmeiro, Sosa, McGuire were there in Washington, you know, it was kind of funny.
No, you want to? No, I'm so glad you said that, because and I mean this. Think about from the McGuire Sosa back and forth. You know, Sosa claiming he couldn't speak English. You know, Palmeiro
waving his finger. Yeah,
Palmeiro. To this day, when you say Mark McGuire, the first thing that comes to my mind is that visual of him sitting there in that suit. That's how I see him. I don't see him in a uniform. I don't see him at bat. I see my vision of him when you said that was him literally sitting with his hands in front of him wearing a suit and tie.
Well, Palmeiro, I see waving his finger. And,
there you go.
And Sammy Sosa, I do see him as, you know, not knowing how to speak English anymore. But then I also see him now as Count Dracula. So
I was about to say that too. When you say you see Sammy Sosa, I don't see Sammy Sosa anymore, because he appears to be transparent.
He changed his appearance completely. He turned
totally different. He's like, I don't want people to see me for who I really am anymore.
He turned into a vampire. But
yes, he did.
But anyways, that's a whole nother funny, just funny stuff about Sammy Sosa.
Good of Mr.
But
Sosa.
yeah, so again, the government's involved again in sports, and again, it's this scandal. And again, it's not good for the league, but you mentioned the gambling. We talked about this before, the gambling that's promoted with sports now, the apps, it's everywhere. And again, you got this new, like NBC, Amazon Prime, right? They're showing NBA games now. I believe Blake Griffin is on there. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he has a commercial now where he's placing bets on the app. So that's what we talked about. You know, we talked about Tom Brady working for the network and being a part owner. So now you got this gambling scandal going on. Meanwhile, I'm watching the NBA or anything on Prime. I'm getting these Blake Griffin commercials where I'm like, well, you work for Prime now. You're an analyst on the NBA games, and you're openly on a commercial promote, you know, you're betting on games.
Yeah, listen,
not that he's doing anything wrong, but you see the optics of it.
The optics of it. Well, and that's the thing, and I think that's where everything is so convoluted now. There's so many connections to so many different things that are going on, and it's fantastic for the players. I want Blake Griffin to be able to be in these commercials. I want him to be able to get these jobs in broadcasting, but there's always going to be conflicts of interest. And we don't typically think about conflicts of interest until something goes completely sideways, and we have to. So even with the Brady thing, it was like, hey, you know, okay, so Brady's part owner of the Raiders. That's not going to interfere with his job as a broadcaster. Sure enough, 3 weeks in, now you've got a Tom Brady scandal because there is a conflict. There's a lot of overlap.
Right.
There's a lot of money at stake. I want people to be able to kind of venture out and find the different ways that they can make money promoting things, endorsing things, and being on shows. But the Damon Jones thing, I'll circle back and just kind of close this out just a little bit.
Yeah.
So they actually have a text message that Damon Jones sent, and I'll read this verbatim from the CBS News article. The indictment alleges that Jones sent a text message to a co-conspirator February 9th, 2023, a couple years ago, saying, "Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the information is out." And then it's redacted saying player 3, in quotes, is out tonight. That just so happens to be LeBron James,
Yes.
who happened to be out that night. By the way, Damon Jones, former teammate of LeBron James.
Yes.
So, so there's a huge connection there, but I mean, they have actual literal proof of him passing tips off, or alleged proof of him passing tips off to people to place bets. That's something that's totally different. But it just seems as if they're trying to make this a bigger deal than what it actually is. I mean, again, there were over 30 people arrested in this probe. Lots of people, all of them New York centric, it seems to be. So, it's interesting to see. And actually, there's some people outside of there, just kind of scattered. And I think that's what makes it federal as well. You reach a certain dollar amount. And once these crimes, just, for people who don't know, once a crime crosses state lines, now it reaches into federal territory. Gotcha. And that's where the wire fraud and money laundering come into play, because you're moving money from one place to the next, and it's crossing state lines. And now it's like, okay, well, because we can't have a case in North Carolina and Georgia, now the federal team can pick it up and make this a big, dog and pony show.
And the only other thing I'm going to throw at this is, and that's good information to know for every, that makes it, again, that's why we're getting what we're getting, I think. The other part of this is, I think we mentioned in the text chain as well, Jalen Brown, he came out talking about the NBA needs to protect the players from some of this stuff, which I would assume he's talking about the mafia doing threats. I can't imagine he's talking about, like, I don't know if Rozier got threatened. We don't know anything like that, why he was doing what he was doing, or why guys do this anyways in any sport, that they would cheat to rig the game, which we've seen it though with referees. We've mentioned that before. They're all human. Yes. So, and money and greed and things like that come into play. But I mean, what protection? The NBA, I don't know that they can offer protection from the mafia. I think it's the government that right now they're on the case, right? So I think they're going to have to look a little more into this mafia stuff, because that's their job, and the feds and things like that. If this is something that is going to be a problem going forward, that millionaire celebrity athletes or coaches are being pressured some way or another to make these bets, or poker games to cheat people, I think that's the issue there. That's why I said I didn't agree with Jalen Brown, because I'm like, man, these are grown men. Like, they know what's right and wrong. They know they can't fix games. You can't fix the spread. You can't fix the over-under. You can't take yourself out of games knowingly that there's big bets placed on you. You can't, airball layups like you've never played basketball before, and pass to the other things like that were going on that happened in a game, but not as much as it was happening with certain players. So I don't know what protection they need. I don't know what the NBA can do. I mean, Adam Silver is not exactly killing it right now in his job, so he's just got something else on his plate. And I also another thing I'm gonna add is, I don't think it was a coincidence that this story came out the day after opening night of the NBA. Everything is timed in,
a fantastic opening night.
Everything is timed in the media when stories came out, when they come out, and when, of course, arrests are made as well with the government. Everything's timed. It was not a coincidence. But NBA has, like you said, it was a good opening night. But unfortunately, this is going to be a huge topic. Lucky for the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer, it takes the heat off of them for a little while.
And that's where I was going to land the plane, man. I find it interesting that, one of the richest human beings on the planet is roped into scandal where there's massive amount more money that was being wagered in this, alleged gambling ring. There's, with actual literal contractual documentation. I think the only difference between the Clippers Kawhi Steve Ballmer story and this particular gambling probe with Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, the only difference is that this one got all the news coverage.
It got way more, obviously.
Way more news coverage.
The feds involved, things like that. But I mean, both stories. I mean, both cases are you're cheating the game.
Correct. You're cheating. You're cheating the game. You're cheating your contemporaries. You're cheating the other owners within the league. Yeah. You know, you have an unfair advantage. Now, the only difference is that with the Clippers, technically, from everything that we've seen so far, there was no actual literal illegal activity. However, when you compare the two in terms of, I guess let's just say integrity for the sport itself.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's easy to say that it's a 1A and 1B.
It's right there.
It's right there. And the last thing I'm going to say in terms of, you know, the gambling, you mentioned the Jalen Brown comments and, you know, and protecting the players. So I'm just going to, this is a hypothetical situation for anyone hearing this. I'm pulling this out of my ass. This is just a hypothetical. Let's just say that player A, nameless, faceless player who just makes, we'll just pick a round number, say $10 million a year. He happens to be invited to a poker game that involves some, you know, unscrupulous characters, let's just say. But it's a poker game like any other poker game. Let's just say he bets a hand, and let's just say he just happens to lose $250,000 that he owes in gambling debts. Let's just say that Group B, I'm not going to call them, let's just say Group B approaches player A and says, hey, that $250,000, don't worry about it. But here's what I want you to do for me instead. The other teammates, other guys that you know on other teams, when they come in to play the Knicks, have them come in and play our game too. $50,000 a hand, right? Bring them in, and that way what we'll do is we'll wipe off your debts. You don't owe us anything.
Yeah.
End hypothetical situation. That's how this type of stuff can happen. It's super easy. And it's like, oh, wait, I don't have to pay you $250,000. It's like, oh, all I gotta do is just invite some other guys to come in who already play poker. I mean, the gambling and everything takes places on the planes, you know, in between flights from game to game. We know this has happened since Jordan. This has happened since the 80s.
Yeah.
So none of this is new.
One of the biggest gamblers.
Yeah, one of the biggest gamblers, like historically. So, you know, just things to keep in mind. I'm not defending these guys' actions. I don't know what they did, but I just want to keep in mind who the actual victims in this situation remains to be. It's the people who lost money, who got schemed and scammed out of their money. So I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind. We could talk about Chauncey and Rozier all we want, but whatever happens when all this is done and the dust is settled, let's make sure that those guys get their money back, whether it's through restitution or if they got to sue these guys personally to get their money back.
This is a podcast by fans for fans. Let's not forget about the fans.
Yeah,
we want to watch competitive basketball, football, baseball, whatever.
Yes,
just play. Just give us your all. We don't want to watch you, you know, point shave.
No,
think about the fans. Fans are the victims too.
Yeah, we are, and I mean, and think about it. You know, when you talk about guys sitting out, and my question is I would love to look at the data. You know, load management. And I'll say this. I had a friend of mine who lived out of state, who traveled into Charlotte, and it was a game that just so happened to have the Lakers. This is a couple years ago, and he really wanted to go. I mean, he's literally from, you know, a deep part of the South that doesn't have a professional sports team. And he was asking me, he's like, what do you think the chances of LeBron James is playing tonight? I want to see him play live. He hesitated because his injury was listed as questionable. Now, LeBron was an older player then. He literally missed, and it turns out LeBron James did play, but he didn't want to run the risk of buying a ticket to a game and then have LeBron not play. So, you know, these are the types of things I'm curious what happens data-wise when players, now all of a sudden there's a probe into guys sitting out, guys leaving games early, guys not playing in games, and the bets and the correlation to see whether or not there's a connection to some of these. And we're talking big name players who just happen to be sitting. These are the types of things that people are going to start looking into, and you're going to find a correlation of, wow, it's very suspicious that these bets come in and these players aren't playing.
You're right. It'd be interesting. I know they're looking into a lot of stuff. They said these bets pop up. It would probably be good to look into that as well. Yeah, so that's another episode, a bonus episode of Fanatically Speaking, the gambling scandal going on in the NBA. I am Kent, the co-host and promoter.
I am Loggoff, the Loggoff legend hater of social media. I'm the co-host and producer of the show. Yeah, this was just something we wanted to throw together. It was a huge story. There's going to be more details that come out, and the rumblings is that this is just kind of the beginning of it. That there's going to be more allegations that come out. For me, if I had to give it a grade, I'd probably out of 1 out of 10, I'd probably give this news a 6. It matters, but to me, I think the coverage of it made it a bigger deal than what it was supposed to be. But This was something that Kent was like, no, dude, we got to jump on. Let's just make an episode. So this is a bonus episode content that we'll throw out this week for you. And, make sure to keep checking all of our socials, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Follow, like, share, review, comment.
Yeah, keep listening to the normal episodes. This is a bonus one again. And I think we'll be doing this probably in the future. Just, if there's a hot topic going on, we can get it out there. We're going to get it out.
Yeah, if I'm not either working or, cooking food, we can jump on and throw another bonus episode out there. So, yeah, man, that's all I got. You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Yep. Let's kill it.